Continuing my top 150 albums of all time, we're now going to focus on those from 70 to 61. So I hope you're keeping up with us. As I've said before, for those tuning into this video on Rumble, you will get the minimum of one track audio to sample at the end of my chat, but for most I'll try and include two songs. Okay, so let's get on with it. So let's get started with number 70 then, and I've chosen Modern Nature by the Charlatans. It came out in 2015, and I really have been getting more and more into the Charlatans. They're a sort of Manchester-based band that started out at the same time as the Stone Roses, but they've lasted a lot longer. And Tim Burgess is their vocalist. Now to the album. Well, I really enjoyed this album, and particularly the two tracks that I'm going to feature, Talking in Tones and Emma Lee. The band are an indie rock band, but they have a lot of sophistication and a lot of class. So get stuck into Modern Nature by the Charlatans. So to 69, way back in 1974, my best mate at the time, a ex-school buddy, turned me on to 110cc. I'd previously thought that they were a bit of a bubblegum type band, poppy and with little talents. How wrong I was. So anyway, at number 69 I've got their second album. It's called Sheet Music, and it's full of hits and wondrous pop. The four guys, Kevin Godley, Lol Crumb, Graham Gouldman and Eric Stewart, they all wrote music. They all played a multitude of instruments, super talented. And from that album, the highlights, Wall Street Shuffle was a big single, as was Silly Love. And I also liked Somewhere in Hollywood, which was like a sweet, very much an album for you to get stuck into. 10cc's Sheet Music from 1974. Moving on to 68 then, and I've got the debut album by the Stone Roses, which came out in 1989. Yeah, the one album really that ignited their indie rock movement around Manchester. It's a terrific album. They did make one other, Second Helping, but then fizzled out. But this one, I think, is worth your whatever you pay for an album in the UK now. Highlights: I Want to Be Adored and I Am the Resurrection. Terrific stuff. Love it. And Stone Roses, 1989's debut. So to number 67 now. In 1975, I really came across an album that really changed my view of this artist. His name was Jeff Beck, and prior to that I'd sort of indulged to a slight extent in his work with Rod Stewart. He was in those days really a bit of a sort of rock band connoisseur, great guitar player, but he really hadn't really expanded his repertoire. Well, this debut album, Blow by Blow, that came out in 1975, launched his career and expanded to include some beautiful ballads, some funk, and of course jazz rock. He was just probably one of the greatest exponents on guitar that I'd ever heard. And latterly I've got a great Live at Ronnie's set, which is absolutely scintillating. But on Blow by Blow, the standout tracks were Stevie Wonder's "'Cause We've Ended in Lovers." Of course, instrumental, no singing on that. And in fact, there was hardly any singing on the album. And then Diamond Dust, which closed the album. Some scintillating piano by Max Middleton on this. So get a taste of Blow by Blow by Jeff Beck, released in 1975. At number 66, this is an artist that I got into in the 90s and have continued to appreciate his work. This is when world music took over my listening pleasures, and one of the exponents of that was one Salif Keita from Mali. He was an albino from Mali. I don't know why I mentioned that, because it's probably not relevant, but it conjures up an image of tribalism, and he was very much a tribal leader when it comes to music. The album that I launched into at 66, which was released in 2005, was Mbemba, and I've singled out Bobo and Leban as two tracks to basically get stuck into, and they will be highlighted here for Rumble listeners. So there we are at number 66, Mbemba by Salif Keita. At 65, we're going way back now to 1966, and although I'm not that familiar with the tracks on this album, it is a very, very important album in the development of British blues and rock. It was headed by John Mayall, and the album is called John Mayall's Blues Breakers. Significant was that on this album we first really got a taste of the mighty Eric Clapton on guitar, and of course he covered one of the tracks that is showpieced on this album, Rambling on My Mind, and there's also a cover of Ray Charles's What I'd Say. Great album, certainly a vital album really, if you got into Eric Clapton. So there we have it at number 65. It's John Mayall's Blues Breakers by John Mayall, and it's at my number 65. In 2011, I first experienced the magnificence of an album by Mike Scott's Waterboys. It was called An Appointment with Mr. Yeats. That was W.B. Yeats, a poet, and Scott had adapted his poetry to songs, and then went into the studio and recorded them. It's an absolute tremendous powerhouse of an album with lots of delicate moments symbolising the nature of the Irish poetic genius that W.B. Yeats was. Tracks to consider as the best: The Hosting of the She, The Fairies' Lasty Song, and, well, it's all great really, but those are a couple that I've written down. So get stuck into this one. It's at number 64. It's called An Appointment with Mr. Yeats. It's by the Waterboys, and as I said, it was released in 2011. Up to number 63 now, and my choice here is the 2001 album by Ryan Adams called Gold. This was a double album, and I'm run a bit hot and cold with Ryan Adams. He's sometimes extremely good, and others he becomes very much middle of the road, I feel. A hugely talented man. I'm not going to refer to in any length with his discrepancies with regard to his treatment of the fairer sex, which basically got him into an awful lot of scrapes after this album. But this double album has got some crackers on it. In fact, one of the best tracks is called Firecracker. I also like Rescue Blues, and there's a great soft rock, I suppose you describe it, La Cienega, which is one of my favourites. Apologies for the noise, it is late. I thought there would be no noise now, but this is Thailand. So to number 62 on this countdown, and I've chosen the 1992 album by Roger Waters called Amused to Death. Roger considers this to be his greatest piece of work, and I'm inclined to agree with him, although Pink Floyd fans might differ. But if we're looking at Roger Waters' solo career, it does stand out. But it also stands pretty strong against some of those monster Floyd releases. I'm referring to Dark Side of the Moon specifically, and The Wall. Anyway, this album has Jeff Beck on guitar, and the highlights are some lengthy tracks. Watching TV is a lengthy track, and then What God Wants, I think is in through 2 or 3 parts, as is Perfect Sense. The title track is also worth noting. So there we are at 62. It's Roger Waters. His album is Amused to Death, and a very good one it is. So the last in this video, capturing the best albums from 70 to 61, is number 61, and another world music album. This is from the other side of the world, to Central and South America. It's by an artist called Leela Downs, and she's from Mexico. Her parents, her father is actually from Scotland, and her mother from Mexico, and she has had a number of releases, but I particularly like this one, which came out in 2004. It's called Una Sangre, and there's some magical songs on here. A couple that you're going to hear if you're on Rumble are Paloma Negra, which is a traditional Mexican song, and then the other is One Blood. How to describe her music? Well, it's a mixture of Mexican flavor with European modern rock. But she does touch on the flamenco, she touches on the reggae, and she's got a band that are absolutely superb. So there we are, that's my number 61 choice. It's Una Sangre by Leela Downs, and it was released in 2004. So that concludes this video.